Welcome to the special Township Board meeting, Charter Township of Comstock, Tuesday, March 24th, 2026. This meeting is now called to order. May we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll be moving along to public comment. A citizen may state... I'm sorry. We're looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
Excuse me, before we approve the agenda, I have a couple of questions that I would like to ask Rob Thaw. First of all, we've never had a hearing in the 13 years I've been on this board. So my first question is, are we making a special exception for Ben Martin? Because I've never heard of having a hearing over an ordinance. And the second question I'd like to ask, is this hearing a violation in the Michigan State Constitution?
I believe the attorney's going to address that later. I still think we need to approve our agenda before we start business. Or...
Turn your volume up, please. Can't hear you.
Supervisor Martin, could we please have one person to run the microphone back and forth along here all night long? Who's ever speaking? If we could get one person from the audience, I think that might help move things along.
Mr. Favor.
All right, with regard to the question of why it's a hearing and that we haven't had one before, and that's the statute that there's a proposed violation of is a very particular statute under the liquor license ordinance that the township has. And under this ordinance, is the process, is to afford the licensee a hearing on the license. So it's not... there's no citation that's issued under this under this ordinance. It's not a violation of municipal civil infraction or criminal misdemeanor. It's under the procedures of this specific ordinance that requires a public hearing. So that's why we're having that. And in terms of whether it violates the Michigan Constitution, I would not believe that it does.
And I believe there's a typo error on page 3, Nicole? It was corrected? Okay, I do not have the corrected one, thank you. And I would also like to make a motion to add the second public comment to the agenda, which is missing tonight.
I'd be looking for a motion of approval of the agenda as presented and amended.
I make the motion to approve the agenda as added.
Support.
Support.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So, how many do we have there?
2 opposed.
2 opposed. Motion passes. The agenda has been amended. Moving along to public comment.
Hold on. You might want to recap that.
Let's do a roll call vote, please, and then we'll start at the end.
No.
No. Wait. You want to state it over?
Let's ask Rob to explain what we're doing, and then we'll...
All right, so there's a motion on the table to approve the agenda as amended with a public comment at the end.
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Be looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Roll call vote?
You don't have a motion or a second. Support?
I
I move that we approve the agenda as presented. Support?
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
The agenda is approved. Moving along to public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. A citizen may state their name and address and may speak only one time for no more than 3 minutes. This time may not be given to another citizen to extend their time. The person speaking has the floor, and no other citizen shall speak during someone else's time. During this time, you'll be making statements to the board without discussion from board members. You are welcome to make an appointment with the supervisor or superintendent to discuss your comments further. Their contact information is located by the door. Please keep comments clean and respectful. It should be noted by the supervisor that public comment will be the public's opportunity to make comment on agenda and non-agenda items limited to 3 minutes per person, and that the hearing to be held today is not open for the general public comment. If there is anything that the public wants the board to be aware of, they need to make it during the public comment portion of the meeting.
Hi, Tammy Keeler, Comstock Township resident. You guys are messing with Ben for the wrong stuff. You guys have violated so many ordinances. Sherry should step down from this hearing. Seems that her husband is the one that made the complaint. She should not have no vote or no say. And you're all just doing this to deceive the real issues of this township. The real issues to get them off them. Superintendent has his back. Being a resident Comstock, y'all ought to know this is what it is, just a deterrent. Because according to MCL 4211, the papers I just handed you, he has to be a resident of this Comstock Township, and he is not. You guys did not amend anything for him to be the superintendent without being a resident. This ought to be public. This ought to be put out to the public. He was never, you guys never voted on this. And I think that he ought to step down. He has never took an oath of office. You guys are just deterring the fact that we're going after your superintendent, so now you're going after Ben. Ben runs a family farm, which is safe for children and adults alike. You guys have done this to him ever since he's been on this board. And the residents of Comstock, and I am speaking for the residents that I represent in my neighborhood and stuff, and for maybe all these residents, you guys have treated him like crap since day one. You guys opened him up, now you're going after him for a liquor license, which is not a liquor license, it's called a winery license. Get that straight. And that ordinance, I think you better read up on that a little bit more, because I can get proof of that too. That is an old ordinance. So Mr. Thaw, I think we need a better attorney than you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, you dropped something on the floor.
Hi there, my name is Kelly Cody. I'm a commander of the Coalition of Veteran Service Organizations in Kalamazoo County.
Turn it up.
My name is Kelly Cody. I am the commander of the Veteran Service Organizations in Kalamazoo County. After your last meeting, I spoke to the clerk, and she shared with me that the board had decided to move forward with the land bank on the property on Lombard Street. On behalf of the VFW's, American Legions, and the Marine Corps League in Kalamazoo County, I would like to thank you for prioritizing veterans first. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
As I was thinking I was going to say today, I was going to tell a story about a bed, but it hasn't been made yet. Not fun? You can sway 1,000 men appealing by their prejudices quicker than you can convince one man by logic. Robert Henline said that. Our township deserves effective governance from our board of trustees. Board members are not above ordinances. They should be followed the same way as we constituents must follow them. I know state laws, commissions, federal laws, and township ordinances often intersect, which can cause confusion because how someone can interpret them. I feel it's important to set emotion aside in this moment and do our due diligence to ensure there's been no violation. Changing the current ordinances could set a precedent for the current board or future boards to modify to their individual needs or interests. Furthermore, the possible legal ramifications of not letting this matter take due process could be disastrous. We don't know. We have to follow due process. Meetings should be held with respectable decorum during the public comment. There needs to be a respectable decorum among board members as well during the meeting. No board member should have to sit up there and take ridicule, threats, and the unkind things that you guys have to endure. Whoever you are, it's not fair. It's not. We should treat you with dignity and respect, and also we should give that dignity and respect back. I heard it doesn't happen sometimes, right? And this is possible without infringing upon people's First Amendment. First Amendment is freedom of speech, but it doesn't say freedom of speech without consequence. This board can set the rules of what's allowed and not allowed in public meetings, in public comment. You don't have to sit there and endure that from anybody, no matter who you are. You guys set the tone. If you guys want to sit up there and take it, take it. But if I was sitting up there and I was a board member, I'd be like, no, I'm not taking this anymore. You're going to talk to me with respect. And you guys need to talk amongst each other with respect. I'm going to finish with this. It is easier to fool people than to convince them what they've been fooled, or that they have been fooled. Remember that.
Thank you, sir.
I feel this is a travesty. Friction with Soil Friends started in 2022, and here we are in 2026 trying to fit a square peg into a round opening. If the law doesn't work, let's try another. Perhaps it's time to re-examine goals and biases. The effort to exhaust Ben Martin into changing or giving up has pulled too many into the muck. The vitriol has become constant. How is this impacting our community? Twice a month, the Township Board meets and hears words and smears. On Facebook, more posts, anonymous posts, and distrust builds. Negativity can be infectious. Friction among board members becomes apparent in discussions and actions and inactions. Recently, the board appointed a committee to review resumes for the DDA, I believe. Their task was to recommend 2 names. Indeed, the task was completed by the committee. The board proceeded to negate their work and have all members asked to read resumes. Why bother sending something to committee and then turning it down? To show lack of confidence in the committee publicly? Discussion on using 864 Lombard Property Partnership
One board member expressed concern about gun practice near the property. This could be a non-starter for veterans, PTSD. That member was largely ignored in the comment, not listened to, I believe. A motion made and failed attempted to control negative community comments by limiting slots on the agenda. Why not settle the issue with Soil Friends and move on? Seems like a good direction for the board. So, is the answer to push this to a legal battle in court and cost the community dollars just to prove some nefarious point? Would you push it to court if the entire cost was on you personally? It seems like a terrible potential expense for the community and wasted effort. People enjoy Soil Friends. Ben Martin is an open supervisor. Please pull the negativity from the community and free up yourselves to concentrate on board work. Make a decision. We put you in office to do just that. There needs to be healing in the community and on the township board. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, Autumn Smith. I'm going to be very direct because what is happening tonight is not just wrong, it's unconstitutional. The board is attempting to take action against Supervisor Ben Martin based on an anonymous accusation in a process where he cannot confront his accuser, cannot test the evidence, and cannot meaningfully defend himself. This is a textbook violation of due process. The 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution and Article 1, Section 17 of the Michigan Constitution both guarantee that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Due process is not a formality. It requires notice, transparency, and a real opportunity to be heard. You're providing none of that. An anonymous accuser cannot be cross-examined. Anonymous allegations cannot be tested for credibility. That destroys the integrity of the entire proceeding. What you're left with is not evidence. It's unaccountable accusations. And it gets worse. When a government body targets a specific individual for punishment outside of the court of law without affording those protections, you are stepping into the territory of Bill of Attainder, which is explicitly prohibited under Article 1, Section 9 of the United States Constitution. Government bodies do not get to single out a person and impose consequences without judicial process. That is exactly the abuse the Constitution forbids. You are not a court. You do not get to manufacture a process that looks like an official proceeding, stripping away the rights that make it lawful. Calling this an administrative hearing or quasi-judicial does not save you. Courts have made it clear when government action affects an individual's rights or reputation, due process must be real and not performative. So let's be honest about what this looks like. A secret accuser, a targeted individual, a board acting without full constitutional safeguards. That is not governance, that is arbitrary power. And shame on this board if you proceed anyways, because at that point, it's not ignorance, it becomes willful disregard of the Constitution and the oath that each of you took. Understand the consequences. Actions taken in violation of due process are routinely struck down. They are unenforceable. And when that happens, the public pays for the legal fees and the fallout of the decisions that were made. You don't get to cut corners on constitutional rights because it's easier, faster, or politically convenient. If you move forward tonight, you are setting a dangerous precedent that rights can be ignored when it suits those in power. So here's the line. Stop this unconstitutional, illegal proceeding. Require a real, accountable complainant. Provide full due process, or be prepared to have all of this undone in court.
Thank you, ma'am.
Honor your oath or admit you're not following
Thank you,
it.
Well, never follow a better comic. John Dickman, Township resident. Why are we even here tonight? This should be a non-issue. Liquor licenses come up for renewal every year. Last year at this time, nobody said a peep about Ben being supervisor and having a winemaker's license, including the person that filed the complaint. When this first came to light, a couple of meetings ago, the attorney said you've got three options. You can amend the ordinance, you can take no action, or you can pass a resolution and send it up to the Liquor Control Commission. Well, the deadline to send it to the Liquor Control Commission came and went because the license has been reissued. You can still amend the ordinance, but you've already shown that last year you took no enforcement action, so you've already set your own precedent. The two enforcement officers in the township, Scott and Dakota, they never said a peep about it. And even Ben's own admission, he said that when the state questioned him as to whether he had any enforcement powers, whether he could write a ticket, whether he carried a badge, whether he could levy fines, that he couldn't. That was the end of it right there. So as far as I'm concerned, we could take no action again tonight and then send the ordinance back for amendment and rethinking, because the ordinance was passed at a time where the craft beverage industry, didn't exist. Bell's Brewery wasn't founded until '85. They're the OGs. And then the other thing is, when the township went to a superintendent and the enforcement powers went there, that ordinance should have been revisited right then and there. Just my opinion, my 2 cents worth. Appreciate you listening to me. Good night.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is William Knight, and I am the recall sponsor against 4 of you. Clerk Nicole Beauchamp and trustees Bob Pratt, Terry McIver, and Christy Cherry. I'm speaking tonight not just to you, but to all the people in this room and anybody watching, because the people are paying attention. They've watched the litigation involving Soil Friends and the township and how goalposts kept moving, even as leadership changed. And in the end, Soil Friends was allowed to open with everything they inevitably wanted to do anyway. They've watched the censure of Treasurer Sandy Bloomfield based on allegations of hostile work environment without testimony under oath, raising concerns about hearsay. They've watched the township superintendent receive a $20,000 a year raise and a car stipend, bringing his total compensation to over $200,000 a year with benefits, all while not living in this township. And they've watched the decision around a 400 megawatt battery energy
Please,
storage
no
system.
comments.
A 1-year moratorium was put in place to study the project, but after about 4 months, the 4 of you chose to end the moratorium early. Before any research was done, before any changes were made, the decision could have allowed for the project to be placed as close as 300 feet from our new STEM academy being built. The school district studied it, and they also said no. Thankfully, the Planning Commission completed the work, and we now have a much stronger ordinance in place. But that didn't come from your decision. You voted on it, sure, in the end. But if it had been up to the 4 of you, the moratorium would have ended back in May of 2025. Through a FOIA request I obtained, communications showing trustee Bob Pratt pushing to end the Planning Commission's moratorium as well, through our previous attorney. And now we're here, more than a year into the supervisor's term, and just months after a lawsuit ended, seeking action against Soil Friends using a 1983 ordinance that was put in place before he was even born. People see the timing, people see the pattern. In 2014, our population was roughly 15,300 people. Today, it's around 16,200, give or take. That's less than 1,000 people in 12 years, and yet we're moving forward with a massive new fire station, but we're told we can't afford weather sirens for the community. I filed the recall because of the vote that ended the moratorium early, but that's just one example of the pattern of where residents feel ignored. And when decisions like this are made, especially near a school, the people deserve full process. And now the voters will have their say. Recall petitions will be available to sign immediately after this meeting outside, because we the people are watching. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I lived in Comstock Township for a really long time, and I have to tell you that nothing like this has ever happened in the history of Comstock Charter Township. Normally, ordinance violations follow a clear established process. Ordinance officers investigate, evidence is gathered, if necessary, matters proceed through administrative or judicial channels. That's how due process works. That's how fairness works, and that's how the law is supposed to work. But this special meeting creates a brand new one-time process aimed at a single individual. When government bodies create special procedures for one person outside the normal legal framework, it raises serious constitutional concerns. Under the United States Constitution, a person cannot be singled out for punishment without a judicial trial. No one's claiming that this meeting is formally labeled as punishment, but when a governing body invents a unique proceeding directed at one elected official, it begins to look and feel uncomfortably similar. And then there's due process. The 14th Amendment guarantees that no person can be deprived of liberty or property without fair procedures. This means clear notice of allegations, a neutral decision maker, and the ability to confront evidence and accusers. Yet in this case, the complaint reportedly comes from an unnamed resident, not from a formal enforcement action. Supervisor Martin is being placed in a quasi-judicial setting without even knowing who is accusing him. That is not how due process works. Equally troubling is the lack of clarity about what this meeting even is. Is it advisory, investigative, disciplinary? Will it lead to formal action? No one has said. Courts have repeatedly held that when government bodies act in quasi-judicial capacity, they must follow established procedures, not make them up as they go along. And when one person is singled out for a special process that no other resident would face, it raises equal protection concerns. Laws must be applied consistently. Selective enforcement undermines trust and invites political misuse. This is bigger than one complaint. It's about whether our township will follow its own ordinances, its own procedures, and the Constitution itself. When standard enforcement mechanisms are bypassed in favor of ad hoc, politically responsive actions, it erodes public confidence in the fairness of local government. Many residents are already asking whether this meeting is politically motivated, whether it's an attempt to sidestep established legal mechanisms like recall procedures by using ordinance enforcement in a way it was never intended to be used. This is why transparency matters. This is why your presence, everyone in this room tonight, matters. We must ask clear, direct questions. What is the legal authority for this meeting? What procedures will be followed? What outcomes are being contemplated? And how will due process and equal protection be safeguarded? If we allow a precedent where individualized processes can be created on the fly outside established legal frameworks, then no resident, no matter their position, is truly protected. It's time to stand together for fairness, transparency. Thank you.
Hello, Barry Wayne Adams. How you doing, Ben? Like your shirt. The United States Supreme Court and American Communications Association versus Dowd clearly states it's not the function of the government to keep the citizen from falling into error, but it is the function of the citizen to keep the government from falling into error. And on first base appearance, the existing government has fallen into deep error. It's trying to concoct a procedure, even though it's supposed to be within the legislative realm, of testing adherence to a particular ordinance. Well, the venue for that is in the courts. As Autumn and previous speakers have said, Article 1, Section 9 of the United States Constitution strictly forbids bill of attainder. You're creating a legislative procedure to try to attack a single person. It's incredibly unconstitutional. But unconstitutionality seems to be given easy leeway recently. We've been noticing that in municipalities all across the state. For example, your attempt to limit comment to 3 minutes and to try to tell you what topic you can speak on is in direct violation of Article 1, Section 5 of the Michigan Constitution. No law shall be enacted to restrict or abridge the freedom of speech or of the press. So You can't use the Open Meetings Act, that's a law, to try to concoct or contrive procedural devices to limit or control what the people have to say. Article 1, Section 1 of the Michigan Constitution, all political power is inherent in the people. That's these people back here, not you guys. Article 1, Section 3 says that your function is to listen to our instruction. It's not to take the reins of the horse yourself. You're driving a stagecoach, and you don't have any authority to take off and go wherever you want to go. You have to follow the Constitution. And things like giving no weight to the issue of a valid oath of office on file. That's a serious constitutional requirement, statutory requirement. If it's not there...
Thank you, sir.
Okay, you violated my constitutional rights. But that's okay.
Good evening, Supervisor. Larry. I'm here tonight to ask one question. That's why. Why is this board standing in front of a small family-owned business, Soil Friends? It's not a large corporation. It's a local-owned family working hard to build something of their own. Something that contributes to the community, creates opportunity, reflects the very idea of American dreams. And yet, instead of support, they've been met with resistance at nearly every step. That's not disappointing, it's concerning. Let's be honest about this is really about. There's a focus on the fact that they serve hard cider. The alcohol has long been a normal, accepted part of social life in this country. It's present at restaurants, events, gatherings, everywhere, including in our own community. So why is it being treated different here? Why is this problem when families and friends gather outdoors, sit on a picnic table at Soil Friends, enjoy a drink while their kids play simple games, just as mine do when they go there, just as many people did when they go there? This is not about disruption, this is about community. Soil Friends has the potential to bring people together, to support other local businesses, and to contribute economic health to Comstock. Turning that away does not protect our community, it limits it. We need to ask ourselves what kind of community we want it to be. Do we support small businesses and local families who are trying to invest here? Or do we create barriers that push them away and out? Because right now, the message being sent is not the one of support, it's the one of opposition. And that's something we should all talk seriously about. I urge this to be reconsidered, the stance being taken to support this family, their business, and positive impact they can bring to this community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Peter Hobart. I've been a citizen of Comstock for over 30 years. I have to say from the beginning is I knew Ann Newwood Heist personally, I knew Randy personally. There was none of this drama. The thing was is they took care of the issues in Comstock. What I have found is that neither one of these people took the position to enrich themselves. I keep hearing about the small business, and I hear Bell's Brewery. Well, Bell's Brewery followed the laws within the township to eventually build their business. If you don't like the laws, then you work to change them. You don't run for office and say you're going to bulldoze it. I can give an example. I have a friend that owns horses. He has to pay big boarding fees. He lives in Comstock Township. Well, for each horse, you have to have 10 acres if I understand the law properly. Should he run to be supervisor because he doesn't like the fact that he has to pay for his horses because that's the way the law is set up? Laws are laws. If you don't like the laws, then you change them. And that's what I'm not liking here is the vitriol and the, and if you, and I guess I'd say, then if you don't like being in a position, resign and then run your lawsuits to get your business. Because that's That's the point I have to say. And the same thing, my friend, should he run because he wants to get his horses, because he doesn't have 10 acres, he has to pay money to do that. I don't have a problem with small business. I enjoy adult beverages. But my thing is, do it the right way, change the laws. Don't fight, don't sue the township that you work for. You know, work with these people, try to find an ordinance, try to find something to change the laws. We're a country of laws. I keep hearing the Constitution and this and that, and I want my, but the fact is that we are a nation of laws. None of us should be able to break them. If you want to change them, then you go through the right passages, you change the law, and that's how it works. You don't just complain or get upset or cry about what you have. And like I said, I've lived here 30 years. I knew personally 2 of the supervisors. Never had an issue. Neither one of those people were in it to help themselves. Republican, Democrat. Either side. What they did do is they served this community in the best manner to help people of Comstock. And not to be mean, but not to help Ben. That's not the issue here. It's about me, it's about him, it's about, to take care of the business of Comstock Township. And that's what I like to have done here as a citizen. And like I said, if you don't like the law, you change it. That's the way the country works. And you do it through the judicial process. I've heard the judicial process. And I understood that there's been lawsuits. Well, find a state legislator or whatever to change the law and the way it's set up.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time.
Guys, please be respectful. Please. Everybody deserves a chance to have their own comment.
Hi, my name is Sarah Martin, and my family owns Soil Friends. I want to be clear, this situation is not about whether our business follows state law. We are properly licensed through the state of Michigan as a manufacturer, and we've opened transparently. We went through a full state licensing process, including background and eligibility checks, and we were approved to operate. What's happening here is an interpretation of a local ordinance that we believe is being applied incorrectly to a situation it wasn't intended for. This matters beyond just our family. If this interpretation stands, it sets a precedent that affects how small local business and public service roles can coexist in this community. We've invested our time, our resources, and our lives into building something that brings people together in this township. We're asking for this to be looked at fairly and accurately. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Harper, and I'm 12 years old, and I'm Ben's daughter. I choose to come up here because I have my own voice, because this matters to me. I know tonight's decision is about rules and positions, but from where I stand, they affect more than that. I've grown up watching families and kids come to our farm, spending time together, building confidence, and making real memories. It's something we grow up with. So when decisions like this are made, it doesn't just impact adults, it impacts kids too. It changes what we grow up with and what our community feels like. I know I'm young, but I do understand this. Your decision doesn't just stay here. They show up in our lives. I hope you'll think about that. Thank you.
Well, that's pretty hard to follow. My name is Kevin Travis. I'm a 1997 graduate of Comstock High School. I've been an attorney for the past 13 years. I've been a Watson Township Supervisor in Allegan County for the past almost 10 years. The way I see this is this should have been resolved at the ballot box. This is a 40-year-old ordinance that belongs in a dirty political campaign, not as township business. And I think this statute, or this ordinance, for one, it's both legal and equitable grounds should be taken apart. One, there's statutory preemption with a state liquor license, and there's very specific ways in which you can remove a township supervisor. One is by the governor, and the other is recall. Another, which is applicable for this ordinance, this 40-year-old ordinance, that, quite frankly, the doctrine of latches should be applied, which means you sat on your hands, you didn't apply it. That means you don't get to enforce it now. And also, unclean hands, because there's a lot of self-dealing here. Now, the people of this township elected you, all of you, as a board, as a slate. And there's the expectation of the township that you all get along at the sandbox. Now, when I first got elected, I certainly upset the apple cart. I was not liked. I was treated much the way Ben is right now. So I know what it's like to sit in his shoes. But you know what? You got to get along with everybody. Doesn't matter what party you're from, because there's no party politics when it comes to local government. There's no Republican roads, there's no Democrat roads. It's the people's business. And that's how it should be. And it's okay to disagree, and it's okay to have polite conversations. But this procedure, if you want to call it that, is a gross violation. It makes you look like a laughingstock throughout the entire state.
Yes.
It really does.
Please let him speak.
From one supervisor to another, from one public official to another. I say this with respect. Let this go. This is something that should have been handled at the ballot box, or at least a year ago when Ben was up for renewal of his license. Not now. You let it go. I wish the best for all of you. God bless all of you. And I pray that you folks can come together and lead the way the township expects you to lead. Because that's what you were elected to do. To be examples of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, I'm Barbara Hathaway, and while I do not live in the Comstock Township, I live in Comstock School District. And I want to address something that is a non-agenda item tonight, but something that most of you have probably already received. And that is a mailing from the school district regarding their latest push for a bond issue. I'm not here to tell anyone how to vote. I'm here to ask you to do your due diligence on this bond issue. The way the wording in the flyer that the school district sent out, it positions the bond as a 0 millage increase. The fact of the matter is, and I got clarification last night from the superintendent, this is in fact a 5 mil bond. So as an additional bond that, if passed, it will increase your property taxes with that additional 5 mils. This is the same millage that was passed in 2022 and 2016 on those bonds. So they can get away calling it a 0 increase bond, but it is in fact a 5 mil bond. The school district is currently in debt, bond indebtedness, principal plus interest, approximately $100 million. Those bond payments that are currently on the books go through 2053. This information is available on the school board website under the transparency logo. So I encourage all of you to do your due diligence, look up the facts, check out the 2019, 2024, 2025 audits. They're back in the notes. And make your decision based on the information you find. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I am Dale Rudd. I live on Woodley in in Comstock. My kids go to Comstock, and I do business. I'm a business owner in the Kalamazoo area. So Of course, this is very near and dear to my heart as someone who would love to bring my business to a small town, just like I brought my family to a small town last year. I don't understand why you're making it hard for businesses. This is absolutely ridiculous. I'll be 40 this year, and this law that you're bringing up, that you've dug up, is older than me. I want to point out, since you guys all know all this, I would like to point out to my fellow residents a few things. The township direction is decided by the board majority of 4 who vote against what Supervisor Martin tries to do. We all know that he's been doing some really good things for our community when possible, but there have been things like safety issues that he has been stopped moving forward. If you don't like where the township is headed, as some people have claimed and blamed on Supervisor Martin, then you need to talk to the 4 who vote the majority, and they're the ones making these decisions. Another thing I'd like to point out is that under Michigan law, the township supervisor, Mr. Martin, has specific duties, but here in Comstock Township, those statutory duties were delegated in 2016. Also, Superintendent Scott Hess was appointed by the board in 2016. This means that Supervisor Martin is not allowed to fulfill those duties because they never reinstated them. The board back then gave duties to someone we elected, the duties of someone we elected, Mr. Martin, to a non-elected official who has been in this position for 10 years. He doesn't live in Comstock. He received $20,000 raise last year. Anybody else? The year before that, over $10,900 raise. He makes almost double the salary of the average household in Comstock as a Comstock employee who does not live here. You cannot take away the duties of a position and then blame that person that things are going the way that you don't want them to go. Supervisor Martin has been transparent and open with us. He informs the public, and that's what we expect of all of you. And if we don't see that right away, you are going to lose your jobs. You are going to be voted out because you work for us, and you have not been doing that. I am so serious about this. This is the future of my family. If it's going against the agenda of Pratt, Cherry, Beauchamp, and McIver, these 4 vote against Supervisor Martin. They hold the power, and we can all see it clearly now. We are done being taken advantage of.
Thank you, ma'am.
Karen Height. I think if we go back, it's been 3 years that they started in on Ben. And every time he tried to meet the expectations of what the previous township board wanted, they moved the goalpost on him. He met all of those, he was able to open. But then he chose to fight for his rights and took the township board that voted against him and were giving him all the hassles to court. He did lose that. That's over and that's done with, and that's where it should be, done with. When the new election, that was his idea of, okay, if I can't win that way, I'm going to do it by getting in there and changing our township and making things transparent. Right from the very beginning, when he was elected into office, he beat one of the good old boys, Randy Thompson. Our treasurer, she beat Bub Sherwood, one of the good old boys. And what happened from there was a hatred towards Ben and Sandy. Started with censoring Sandy, saying that she caused workplace havoc, this, that, and the other, and you hired a $40,000 lawyer and said 13 people heard her say a cuss word. Everybody uses cuss words at some point in time, even if she did or didn't. But the fact of the matter is those people were not sworn in to tell the truth. There weren't 13 people right outside of her office to hear it, so it's hearsay. But yet, it was brought before the board, and you censored her, the 4 of you. Then, we started going after Ben again. And then we went after Sandy again and brought her own private lawsuit in that had absolutely nothing to do with our township. But the 4 of you decided that it was okay to air her private life. And now you're gonna dig up, because it is a political witch hunt. You're going after people because you're upset that they won and beat out your buddies. And who's doing it? It started back with Guy Cherry when he very first posted a nasty comment about the treasurer online. And he's the one that also,
Please, no comment.
he's also the one that filed this complaint against Ben. So if Guy Cherry's gonna sit there, he can get up here and speak and defend himself, because none of us are gonna defend him. We stand behind Ben. His business is good, this law is outdated. Ordinance. And other ordinances, you change them all the time. Zoning ordinances. Matt Watts wanted the zoning ordinance changed so he could build his houses. The four of you passed it against what the public wanted. But hey, that's okay. You guys do what you want, don't you? But you work for us, and the recall will tell us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Jean Kissinger, and before we get any farther,
Here you go, Resi.
Ma'am, please address your comments to the
I
board.
did. They're selling my shirts. So I might as well give them a heads up. Anyways, this has been a witch hunt, the whole thing. We have sat through meetings after meetings after meetings. You have amended things, left and right. When it comes to Ben, oh no, we can't do this. It's against whatever you think. Well, I got news for you. There's a lot of us here that are for Ben. And just remember, there are 4 going to be recalled. And as for going back to the good old boy times, we are not going to let you go into closed session and decide what's being said and what's being voted on before you get up here. There is no more of that. The good old boys are going to be gone. And so is the trifecta thing we've got going. I just wanted to say, Ben, you've got me. And those of you that haven't been up there, you're missing a lot. But you'd rather stick your head in the sand and just go with whatever and make it a witch hunt, because that's what you've done. Every single one of you 4. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Kelly Sackett, Kalamazoo County Republican Party Chairwoman. After reviewing the Comstock Township Ordinance 27, alongside the Michigan Liquor Control Code, it appears the ordinance governs township procedures relating to retail liquor licenses, including applications, renewals, and revocations. Soil Friends does not hold a retail liquor license. Soil Friends operates under a state-issued winemaker manufacturing license regulated by the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. Under Michigan law, the regulation of alcoholic liquor traffic, including the licensing of businesses and persons to manufacture and sell alcoholic liquor, is administered by the Michigan Liquor Control Commission pursuant to the Michigan Liquor Control Code. Determinations regarding licensure and qualifications are matters governed by the state of Michigan and the authority of the commission. In light of that framework, it is unclear how the township ordinance being referenced would apply to a state-issued manufacturing license, such as the one held by Soil Friends and just renewed by Soil Friends. Proceeding under an ordinance that does not apply to a state-issued manufacturing license could raise serious legal concerns, including whether the township would be acting outside of its lawful authority, whether such action could be viewed as arbitrary, and whether the township would be proceeding despite clear notice of the applicable law and jurisdiction. Township officials are generally afforded governmental immunity when acting within the scope of their lawful authority. However, actions taken outside of this authority may not receive the same protections. This is a witch hunt. Everybody in this room knows it, and it needs to stop.
Hi, my name's Emily Murphy. I'm a resident of Comstock Township.
I would like the board to acknowledge that this special meeting is unprecedented, unnecessary, and continues to further divide as this serves no real purpose for Comstock. The amount of time, energy, and money that has gone into trying to shut Soil Friends down over the past couple of years is egregious. These resources could have made a positive impact in the township, as opposed to creating more chaos. This is why I support 4 recalls for a better Comstock. We need to hold our government officials to the expectation of working to better our community. Clerk Beauchamp, Trustee Cherry, Trustee Pratt, and Trustee MacGyver consistently make overruling decisions that go against the best interest of the community. We need folks who are invested in the people of Comstock and do not make decisions out of spite. This goes back to the decision to hold this special meeting tonight, as there had been 2 previous opportunities to discuss this. Spending the extra money, time, and energy for this special meeting is not a decision made in the best interest of the community. If this meeting is to discuss an ordinance violation in which no citation was issued, and the ruling entity, the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, has already stated this is a non-issue, it once again begs the question, why do you feel that creating an extra meeting is the right decision for the community? Some of the costs of this special meeting are paying for the space, paying for the attorney's time, paying for the board members' time, paying for the meeting to be recorded, paying for extra law enforcement, in addition to other costs. Our schools are struggling to create and maintain healthy environments for students and their successes. They are figuring out how to support our most vulnerable with dwindling resources. But the township has enough extra resources to hold a separate special meeting for what should be a non-issue. Talk about a slap in the face. I understand that township monies and school monies come from completely different pots. However, when you see these huge discrepancies as residents, it still feels pretty tone deaf. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Scott Jimenez. I'm a local small business owner and a resident here in Comstock. I want to start by saying I haven't followed every detail of what's been going on, but I have been paying attention over time, and from what I've seen, the situation surrounding Ben has become increasingly concerning. From the outside looking in, it doesn't feel productive, it feels personal. And I say this carefully but honestly, it has come across as a vendetta. What makes that especially troubling is how it reflects on our community. My wife and I are small business owners, and we're part of a broader group of people who are actively trying to build something here. People who invest their time, their energy, and their resources back into this community, who create jobs and want Comstock to grow in a positive direction. When leadership appears to act in ways that feels targeted, inappropriate, or even borderline corrupt, it doesn't just affect one person, it affects all of us. It shapes how people view this community. It creates hesitation for business owners, and it sends a message that involvement may not be welcomed here, it may be challenged. That's not the kind of environment that encourages growth. This board exists to serve the people of Comstock, not to engage in internal conflict and not to create division. We should be asking, are our time, energy, and resources being used to move this community forward? Because when meetings, legal involvement, and ongoing conflict take center stage, it raises real concerns about priorities. Ben was elected by this community, and that should matter. Even when there are disagreements, they should be handled with professionalism, transparency, and respect, with a shared goal of progress. This isn't about choosing sides, it's about trust. Trust that this board is working for the community, not against individuals, and not in a way that damages the reputation of the place we all live and care about. Comstock has a lot of potential, and reaching that potential requires alignment, integrity, and leadership that brings people together, not pushing them apart. I hope that moving forward, the focus shifts back to what truly matters, serving and strengthening this community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, members of the board and fellow residents. My name is Haley, and I'm speaking tonight as someone with deep roots in Comstock Township and as a small business owner who genuinely wants to see the community succeed. My grandmother lived in Comstock, raised my father in Comstock. I spent a good majority of my childhood in Comstock. When I moved back to Michigan and into Comstock after I served in the military. Because of that history, I care deeply about the direction our community is heading. I want to address a growing concern many residents share, how township time, energy, and taxpayer money is being used. When we see repeated meetings like this requiring legal counsel and extended proceedings, it raises important questions. Are we investing in our community, or are we investing in an ongoing internal conflict? Many residents perceive that the majority of this board, specifically 4 members, have focused significant time and resources on actions directed towards Ben rather than on advancing community priorities. Whether intended or not, this gives the appearance of personal or political targeting, and that perception is damaging to public trust. Every dollar spent on extended meetings and legal disputes is tax dollars that could be going towards real community needs. Residents are asking why those funds are not being prioritized for things that directly benefit Comstock, like infrastructure, emergency preparedness, and improvements such as reliable tornado sirens that help keep families safe. As a small business owner of 4 years, I understand how important a welcoming environment is for local businesses. Small businesses strengthen communities, create jobs, and build local pride. Unfortunately, the ongoing issues that we are witnessing send the opposite message. Based on what we've seen, we would not currently consider moving our business into Comstock Township, and that should concern everyone who wants economic growth here. At some point in time, at the same time, there appears to be energy focused on bringing in large projects and corporations that may not clearly benefit residents, while local businesses and community priorities feel overlooked. Growth should improve the quality of life of people who have already lived here, not divide the community. It is also difficult to watch the township struggle while educational outcomes and graduation rates fall behind neighboring areas. Strong schools build strong communities. Investment in education and community development create a long-term success far more than continued political disputes ever will. The community elected its representatives, including Ben, through a democratic process. That decision should be respected. New voices and community involvement should be welcomed because participation strengthens local government and ensures all residents are represented. The board serves the people of Comstock Township, not political sides or personal disagreements. Our country may feel politically divided, but our small community does not have to be. We should be coming together, listening to residents, and focusing on progress instead of polarization.
Hi, my name is Eric Murphy. I'm a Comstock resident up on Woodley Drive. Gosh, I'm here today to speak, even though folks who come before me have pretty much said a lot of what I felt like I would need to say today. But I'd be remiss if I didn't come up and at least make that statement myself. So a few issues that I have with the fact that we're even here tonight kind of begins with the ordinance itself, which is that the ordinance states that a liquor license cannot be held by our supervisor. And as we know, I believe Ben holds a winemaker's license. And while there might be a small distinction there, it does matter, that wording matters, and I suspect if anything were escalated from here in regards to that, I suspect that wording would be the first thing that would get kind of ripped apart. And we'd say he doesn't even have a liquor license, what are you doing here? Aside from that, even though, at the meeting where we determined that we were gonna hold this meeting, the board went through and nobody on the board could articulate an actual conflict of interest or reasoning as to why we should do this, outside of, from what I remember, somebody saying that it's an ordinance that's been on the books for 50 years, so it must be there for a reason. No reason was actually given or provided. We just kind of went with that. It seemed more like an opportunity to go after somebody than any kind of well thought out reasoning that we needed to. Furthermore, we have Ben Martin as our supervisor because he won the vote from the people. I believe because he is the person who won that vote, that the people want him here, he should be here. If we want him removed from office, there is a way to go about doing that. It's through a recall. And so if you are seeing that there are people on this board who are doing things that don't stand for what you voted for, you are welcome to recall them. And I understand there's an effort to recall certain board members happening tonight out in the back parking lot. If you would like to try to recall members of this board who are not acting in your best wishes, that is something you can do, and we welcome you to come visit us and sign that recall. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. I think this is a pretty simple issue. Is there an ordinance? Was it violated? Black and white, not sides, not people's wrongs. I love to drink. I want to drink myself to super at soil farms. And everybody can be fine with that. But if there's a violation, we need to have the precedent that we enforce that ordinance. I parked my truck next to my driveway for 6 years before I was served with an ordinance violation and I had to put gravel down. It doesn't matter how long you get away with violating the ordinance, it matters that we enforce it. This is a set of guidelines that our community comes together and supports to maintain structure and our trust in one another. When my lawnmower broke, my grass was long, I got an ordinance violation. You know, just because these things are happening to a citizen and not a board member doesn't mean that they weren't enforced. You know, and we tie this to somebody's livelihood. We don't allow mechanics to have 10 broken down cars in his front yard because it's his livelihood and he uses those for parts. We don't allow people to have roosters in our town to protect their chickens because they want to sell eggs in front of their house. We don't allow people to have stands in front of their houses, full-time sales, without the proper licensing because of our ordinances. We're setting a precedent here. If we change those ordinances, anytime somebody violates an ordinance, we have to spend money to get a lawyer out here to potentially change the ordinance, to have special hearings, because it's tied to somebody's livelihood. Unfortunately, the ordinance was violated. We just send it up the line. The Michigan Liquor Control Commission decides on the license, not us. We just decide whether or not there was an ordinance that was violated. If it was, we send it up. If the Liquor Control Commission says it's a non-issue, it's a non-issue anyway, and we move past it. We stop wasting our money, we stop wasting our time, we stop figuring who's at fault and what's at fault. It's black and white in the law. The ordinance was violated, it needs to be upheld. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I am a concerned citizen. I guess part of it is watching a lot of this go on. I believe Ben and his licensing committee, this all took place with mediation with the federal suit. When they're in that mediation, he put his business together through it. So I would think if there was any question, it would have come up through that time. I hear a loss. I've never seen a loss. I saw they had to fight hard. Balcom and Sparks and several others were called out for malicious prosecution and judicial misconduct. Yes, did they get away with being a trash outfit and I guess you would say a criminal enterprise, that they were allowed to get immunity because they worked for the government at that point and they weren't willing to charge them. I'd say, if anything, I would go back on them as a community to collect charges for the losses and the damages they've done running their criminal enterprise. Whether the four that join them here, I don't know. But as far as looking back, there's been a lot of time involved in this. I think there's been federal mediation that was involved while he was getting his license state, and he went through several hoops. So it amazes me that we come here afterwards, that this head didn't get raised up when he was in federal or state mediation, going through all this stuff, that you wait until you lose at that point, even though you got immunity, you still didn't win in it, and he didn't lose, it's just that they gave immunity to protect themselves. And I would think the fault belongs to the lawyers that started the mess after they lost and not pay up the dues they cost the community. But yet you attack the poor victim in the middle of it who has done nothing more than try and substantiate a good community service and community help for those around. Coming from a neighbor area, small business myself, I look at it and I'm just amazed and appalled because this could even be allowed. Instead of, but yet the people who cause it go on and cause problems, but they don't stand up and do the right thing or step in to the right spot to help their community. And as the community has spoken, the community needs and wants, yet they fight it because of their own personal vindictive and malicious enterprise that they're running without stepping out and realizing they're here to work for the people. The people deserve that and they have a right to ask for that. You get taken care of because this community takes care of you. You are not in charge, you're not large, you're not above the law. You're not protected because you think you've been here longer or you got buddies in the right place. You are here to help the community to grow together as a peaceable, loving society that we graft together through the multiple different backgrounds, history, nations, beliefs, and the American dream. Not for some priority because of some pestilence or some group that all of a sudden somebody said something and now...
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Andre Bellows, and I just want to point out a couple of things which was not raised yet. The conflict of interest. I want everybody to take a look. There's 8 people sitting here, but 7 of them was only elected. why is there the other person who represents nonprofit corporations sitting here and governs all this board, who had a contract negotiated with a person, Scott Hess, who never took an oath of office. And when he found out about deficiency of oath of office, he was supposed to contact the prosecutor, and he didn't. He lied to the sheriff, saying, well, this oath of office was not necessary, it's just something. But then all of a sudden, the proper channels were supposed to be, you were supposed to vacate his office, and you were supposed to contact the prosecutor. You haven't done that. And now you hold this meeting, which is totally illegal. And I want all of you guys to take a look. Why is the attorneys has so much powers who really was not even elected? It was negotiated by somebody who never took the oath of office. You shouldn't be here.
Thank you, sir.
I have been absolutely blown away by some of the thoughtful, insightful, intelligent comments that were made up here today by our lawyer friend, Haley. You are so awesome. Kelly. They made so many good points that I think you need to really look at and really contemplate. I think the thing that grabs me about this whole thing is Cherry and Company hate Ben. They will do anything that they can possibly do.
Please let her speak.
They will do anything that they can possibly do to derail him and his family and even deprive him of his livelihood. I'm wondering why you are such unhappy jerks. Do you even, isn't there a great restaurant that maybe you could go to? There's a great movie out right now, Project Hail Mary, go see it. Visit with your friends. Do you have to spend literally years hating on Ben Martin and trying to use any stupid little thing to attack him? He was elected to this office. Is it possible that you could just get over it? Could you possibly try to do something for the community except spew your hate? The community is sick of it. Now you have recalls. You're smearing the Comstock name everywhere. People look at you and they say, this place is messed up. And you deserve that judgment because you're just unhappy people who just don't care about the community, just your own biases and the people you want to go after. Leave the man alone. The voters put him there. You have a choice tonight. You can take no action. That is a valid choice. The lawyer said that's what you can do. You can take no action. You can modify the ordinance. You can get rid of it. The thing is very many people have come up here and said they don't even think it's applicable to this situation to begin with. You're just looking for something to dump on Ben about, and we're just really tired of it. Get over it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, what she said. I told myself I would never, ever get up here, but enough is enough. And so, my name is Julie Ferris. I'm here tonight as a mother and as a grandmother. I was once a member of this community, and although I no longer live in this township after a divorce, this place still is very important and a part of my life because my son, Ben Martin, his children, his beautiful wife, and everything he has built is here. I'm here to speak about my son. Before you see him as a supervisor, before you see him as a title, I ask you to see him as a person. As a person. Understand, as a person. A man who chose to invest his life right here in Comstock Township to build something meaningful, not just for himself, but others. So when a comment was made earlier that my son chose, I added this in because I have to, that he ran for supervisor to benefit him, that is absolutely wrong. Ben is a first-generation farmer. No shortcuts, no inheritance, no easy path. Just hard work, long days, and a deep belief that this community is worth it. And what he's built isn't just a farm. It's a place where families come together, where children laugh, and people feel welcome. He opens his land freely to his community. That's his backyard with no charge. Think about that also. The kids feeding the goats, gathering around the chickens, families walking through pumpkins in the fall, Christmas trees in winter, even Santa and cider bringing people together. That's not just a business. That's heart. That's community. And as a grandmother, I want you to hear this part especially. I have 5 grandchildren watching this. They're watching how this community responds to a man who is trying to do good. They're watching what happens when somebody steps up to lead and to give back. What are we teaching them? That work matters, that serving your community means something, or that sometimes, even when you do everything right, it still isn't enough. Is it enough? Because this is enough. Ben didn't step into leadership for power or to be recognized. He stepped in because he cares about Comstock Township and the people in it. And look at the crowd tonight. It shows, doesn't it? And now he's being asked to choose between serving his community or continuing the very thing that serves his community. That doesn't feel right to me. Because the truth is, his farm and his leadership are not in conflict. They come from the same place. A desire to build, to give, and to bring people together.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Please, no comments.
Well, what a welcome. This mic has been too low for most of the people because they couldn't hear it. So, I'd like to make a couple things clear. Number one, I'm really glad we have so many wannabe attorneys in this auditorium here tonight.
Please, no comments, guys. Let him have his time.
Yeah. As long as they're disrupting me, I'd like a few more seconds added to my time.
If you could add in some time.
Thank you. Anyway, all these wannabe attorneys and the attorneys. We are following the township here. I understand the process, due process that's involved to determine whether or not this violation of the ordinance is applicable and reasonable and done properly. However, as attorneys should know, just because an ordinance is old does not make it invalid. Laws do not expire. It's still valid. There has been an apparent violation. It is not on the onus is on the candidate when he runs for office to see whether or not he's violating any ordinance or anything. However, there's over 500 ordinances, and it's hard to go through. Now, what has really brought us here tonight, everybody says, oh, we're picking on Ben and his family. That's not true. Ben and Sarah had a wonderful business. It is a great business.
Please, guys, please.
It is an asset for Comstock Township. Problem started a while back with some permitting issues and some lawsuit that was filed. If this gentleman to my left doesn't shut up.
What are you gonna do?
Guys, please, let's get through this so we can get down to this hearing. Please. Please. All right, we're gonna possibly reissue him a minute longer. Is that fine? Do you want 2 minutes?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to say.
Let him have his comment. We got business to handle. I'd like to have an opportunity as whatever I'm going to be at that podium, whether it's the supervisor or an individual or both, to come up. There's things to handle. Let's let everybody have a public comment.
Back to the point I'm trying to make. Soil Friends is a great business. It's good for the community. It's a wonderful place to take your family. it is just great. It's an asset. This is not about Soil Friends, it's not about Ben, it's about an ordinance that was discovered that is apparently in violation. You can't make an exception for the supervisor without it looking to be corrupt. From the get-go, the people, a portion of the people that speak at the meetings, almost every meeting, have been after 4 members of this board saying, recall, recall, you don't believe, you're not supposed to be up there, you should step down. Corruption, da-da-da. No evidence of corruption has been presented. Okay, this recall, or this ordinance violation probably was a result of this recall stuff that was started by our deputy treasurer, who constantly criticizes, calls for transparency, FOIA's the crap out of the world, and just stirs up trouble nonstop. And then his small band of followers are really vocal and rude. The recall, I have 4 people that the people are trying to recall have not done anything wrong except voted in opposition to the other 3. Those 4 people are ran to serve this community. They have integrity and they're good people. The other 3 people who are trying to recall, there are some issues there. We've got a trustee who doesn't believe anybody could get more votes than him, won't read a report because it's too long, and he already knows what's in it, so he doesn't have to read it and wouldn't believe it anyway. You, as a supervisor, are caught up in the middle of this. The treasurer, the private business that was brought up has to do with a question of trustworthiness. Now, I'm sorry that she's going through this, but all the crap that's been spread about everybody else is totally unjustified. It's a recall, gloves are off, people are feeling dirty. It's too bad, it's a real shame. Soil Friends is a good place. I don't want to see you lose your license, but we have to go through the procedures. In the end, the liquor commission will make the call on that. If they decide in Ben's favor, that will be the time to amend this ordinance. You do it now, it's going to look like favoritism towards an individual on the board, and that's what corruption is. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Sean. I wasn't going to speak until that happened.
Hey guys, let's keep it going. We got business to handle. Let's just all be civil and respect. If we could restart her time as well. Thank you.
I wasn't going to speak until that just happened. Well, so misinformed. This has been a witch hunt for a couple years now. They couldn't pass it with their first attempt, so let's bring up something else. The liquor license has been renewed. It's not illegal.
Can you make comments to the board, please? Thank you.
The liquor license has been renewed. It is not illegal. He doesn't have a liquor license. He has a wine license. You're adapting something to what the 4 of you want. You changed the battery ordinance. You had no problem with that. We didn't vote on that. We didn't take that to a community vote because it wouldn't have passed. So you covered that up for 2 years until there wasn't anything to do about it. Then you had a commission or a committee you put in charge to take their views. The 4 of you voted, well, 1 of you didn't show, voted against it without even hearing their recommendation. And their recommendation was to hold off for at least 3 to 6 months until you had more time to research it. You're not doing what the community wants. If you think you 4 are, there's serious issues because you're not listening. Ben, this is a witch hunt. If it's not, prove it. Change the ordinance. You had no problem with the battery plant, did you? Change the ordinance. He is doing a great job. He is listening to the community. you four continue to vote against him, oppose him on everything. It's ridiculous. We need to work together. There's too much hate in this world right now, and you spew it terribly. It's ridiculous.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name's Dave Weirholt. I'm a Comstock resident. I have a question for you four board members. So we voted Ben to the supervisor position. What resolution did you guys pass right after that? Anybody? Was Ben's salary cut, that position cut? And where did that money go? Yep. Right? There's no corruption, there's no things that look unethical and wrong. Explain that to me. I want an answer.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Robin Burpee. I used to live in Comstock Township a long time ago, long time ago. I grew up in Parchment. My legal guardian was Senator Jack Wellborn as I was growing up because my parents decided I needed a good mentor. And if anything happened to them, Jack and Dorothy Wellborn would have been my guardians. So I spent a lot of time on the road campaigning for governor, campaigning for the state senate in Southwest Michigan. And I have a lot of friends in Comstock still. I never heard of Ben Martin until October 2025. When I came to your meetings, I watched him online. I followed newspapers. I asked questions of your community. And I think what we're looking at here is a lack of tools, or maybe some of you just don't know how to use them. And that reminded me of something I learned in elementary school. If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning. I'd hammer in the evening all over this land. I'd hammer out danger. I'd hammer out warning. I'd hammer out love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land. My suggestion would be to put the hammers down before your coffin's closed. And one thing that Jack taught me as a farmer was if you want to get out of a hole, you should use a shovel to stop digging and to get yourself out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
It's been an interesting meeting. You know, usually we've had some meetings more go on with first public comment though. I've heard some stuff the past couple, weeks and everything. There might be a conflict of interest. A board member's husband filed a complaint. If they vote on that tonight, isn't that a conflict of interest? I hope the attorney brings this to attention to tell if it is or not. Just like Bub Sherwood couldn't vote on certain stuff, just like anything with Soil and Friends, Ben cannot vote on. It is a conflict of interest here. Possibly. Don't know for sure. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not I'm not anything. I'm a lawn care business owner in Comstock that graduated from Comstock schools. And I will say, this is beginning to look a lot like a prison. Some of these walls used to be painted light blue and everything like that. Now they're gray and white. This is looking like a prison. What's going on in Comstock Public Schools? Right. Get the color back in, please. And I hate to see that. I love Comstock, going here and everything like that, but lately they're just not spending the money correctly, just like the township. Not spending money correctly here at all. We're wasting money on stuff like this. Like this probably cost us, $500 to $1,000 to rent this room. Maybe they gave it to free. That would be another bad thing on Comstock Public Schools. They could have got a lot of money out of us. Who wins in this situation here? One person that does, the lawyer, because he gets paid. The lawyer gets paid to sit here, $500 an hour.
Let's let him comment.
And the other thing is like we got one microphone for 7 or 8 people. Like this was not thought at all, people. Again, failed by the Comstock Township again. I wish we could get together and actually just start working on real problems. Homelessness, garbage all over the place. Downtown Comstock sometimes does not look good and everything. You know, the other thing I would say is, like, in the wintertime, I noticed the Comstock sidewalks downtown were not shoveled, were not snow blowed, were not anything. Where do the kids go when they want to go to Speedway or Dollar General? You know where they have to walk? In the road. I really think we need to work on a problem in the wintertime that if it's, you know, you put it on the business owners, you put it on Comstock Township because it's right down there and everything, to get those plowed for the kids and homeless and people that want to walk to stores downtown Comstock. That's another problem I see. We need to start working together and stop fighting each other and wasting our money here at Comstock Township. We are taxpayers and we need to stop wasting money on stupid stuff like this. I think we can all agree here in this room on one common thing. This is stupid. We need to stop wasting money. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Holly McKinley, Tulsa Avenue. I am the daughter of Amy Taylor at Bird's Bakery and the sister of Joe Mines at Auto Tech, small business owners. I see a lot of my beautiful faces up here. Ben, I went to school with you. Bob, you donated so many things to our basketball team and our sports. Thank you. And Sherry, you hold a very special place in my heart. I'm here I don't know what really to say, but I just want everything to be resolved and with love. And for us to get some stuff done, as he was saying, start worrying about the things that really matter, like homelessness. I don't know about the sidewalks being shoveled, but sure. I just feel like there's so many more important things that we could be focusing on. And I did enjoy Ben's Farm the past 2 years over Christmas for wreaths and the pumpkin patch. My kids love it. We love the taco truck. Sandy, you were also my first job. So I know that everybody is in limbo right now, and I'm just going to be the person to come up here and say that I'm praying that we can come together and that we can make this work, or not. But it would be really important if we started doing things and getting things done and loving each other and working by each other instead against each other. I'm also a mom here at Comstock, and we are selling baked goods today. So, but I'm here and I'm supporting, and Ben, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dane Webb. I'm the chairman of one of the largest student Republican groups in the state. I felt that kids in my community had no place to go to serve and make their voices heard, so I built it myself through hard work and determination. Just like how this supervisor built his own business, a place where families come together, laugh, and make memories. I had no intention of speaking tonight, but after sitting here, it reminded me the essence of what it means to be a public official. It means you represent the community, not your personal interests. It's a fact that the Liquor Commission has already approved Soil Friends' license, and at this point, it's obvious that this is a witch hunt and not a concerned governmental body. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If there are no further comments, we'll be moving along with business.
I gotta have my chance. I've been waiting for everybody to stop talking. All right, John Paver. I'd like to thank everybody's patience for being here. Regardless of whatever side you're on, I think it is important that you get involved at whatever local level or state level, because your voices and opinions matter, regardless of whatever side that you were on. As many people have said, I had a whole thing typed out, but everybody has done such a great job of really articulating their thoughts, and I'd like to congratulate everybody. I'd like to congratulate the young girl as well. Sorry. Because it really saddens me that we have to have a young girl like her come up here and say these things to adults. Because somebody like her at her age should not have to come up here to tell grown adults how to act like adults. And it hurts my heart to have to listen to hear that, but she did a wonderful job, and I congratulate her. As many have said, there is no, what we are having a discussion about here today is that is an ordinance have authority over the state, and whether or not that he is out of line with the ordinance. And in fact, somebody had mentioned, well, if the ordinance, or if it goes up to the MLCC and the MLCC has decided that he's in good standing, well, they already have done that and have already said that he's in good standing. Now, obviously that happened after this was already in order, so, here we are continuing with this. Can I see how much time I have, please? Okay. Thank you. The other thing that I want to mention here is that in the last year, there was a wineries of Old Mission Peninsula v. Peninsula Township, federal case. In that, Judge Paul Maloney awarded nearly $50 million in damages to 11 Michigan wineries because the township tried to use local ordinances to prohibit what the MLCC permits. The court held that a local ordinance cannot contain an absolute prohibition on activities that a state has licensed. Sorry, I gotta keep scrolling because everybody did such a good job talking. Go down to the ordinance itself does not apply. Section 2700 is titled Applications for New License. The restrictions in Section B, including B8, govern who the township will approve when a license comes through the board for approval. Supervisor Martin's winemaker manufacturing license never came to this board. Under MLCC rules, local legislative approval is not required for manufacturing licenses. The township never had gatekeeping authority over this license. Even in the township's own ordinance, it states that only the MLCC can make a determination and enforce it. This board can do nothing but send a tersely worded letter to say that they don't like it, at which point the MLCC would still give Supervisor Martin the opportunity to present his case. So, that's it.
Thank you, sir. Any further citizen comment? Take the podium.
Hello, I'm Joanna Leadmaker, Millette, Comstock Village. I've been a Comstock resident since I was born, and this is shameful. It really is. We are Comstock, all of us. There is no right, there is no left. There is us. We need to come together. We need to do what is best for our community. Not for what's best for us, like building a plant that could endanger our children. That does not need to go through. My little girl's gonna be going to STEM. And if those are fired, she won't be able to get out. Ben has had all of his things approved. He's done everything by the letter. And honestly, I wouldn't mind if he starts making moonshine, start Michigan moonshine. It'll bring so much business into our community. It will help benefit all of us financially. Because everything that is taxed, you know how they like to take that money. Those tornado sirens, they need up. How often do you get those alerts on your phone? What if your phone's on silent? What if you have it die and you don't have that notification? What are you gonna do? Get hit by the tornado and go flying like the Wicked Witch of the West? That's about it. They need up. This nonsense needs to stop. And basically, start making that moonshine, Ben, okay?
Thank you, ma'am. Any further citizen comments this evening? If there are no further comments, we'll be moving along with business. I'd be looking for a motion for Supervisor Martin for recusal.
I'll make a motion for Supervisor Martin to recuse himself from discussion. Or
I support.
Motion made by Treasurer Bloomfield, supported by Trustee Amos. Attorney Thal, am I able to roll call vote on this, and am I able to vote during that vote as well?
Yes.
Okay. Roll call vote?
Trustee Pratt.
Yes.
Trustee Amos.
Yes.
Trustee Cherry.
Yes.
Clerk Bochamp, yes. Supervisor Martin.
Yes.
Treasurer Bloomfield.
Yes.
Trustee McIver.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried.
Who feels that Sherry shouldn't be up there on that floor, seems her husband put him.
Please, no comments from the audience. I'd be looking for a motion for a moderator as well.
I move that Trustee Pratt moderate the meeting. Support.
Motion made by Clerk Bochamp, supported by Trustee Cherry. Roll call vote? And then am I able to vote in this matter as well? Okay, so roll call vote?
Trustee Pratt. Trustee Amos.
Yes.
Trustee Cherry.
Yes.
Clerk Bochamp, yes. Trustee McIver.
Yes.
Treasurer Bloomfield. Okay, motion carried.
Okay, thank you all. With the information I received earlier after the recusal and the appointment of a chair for this part of the meeting, I'm asking that Supervisor Martin may address the board from the podium.
So that would be after my own.
After, okay, that was number 7, and on the paper I received, your overview is number 8, and I wondered about that as far as a switch.
Yeah, so I would do overview that in here.
Okay.
Give the microphone, just so people can hear.
All right, thank you. Thanks. So today is a date set for a hearing regarding a potential violation of the Comstock compiled ordinance, section 27, being the Township's liquor license ordinance 231. The Township discussed the complaint against Soil Friends and its member, Supervisor Ben Martin, at their March 2nd, 2026 regular meeting and determined to set this matter for hearing. The hearing date was then rescheduled by the board to allow for a larger venue at their March 10, 2026 special meeting. Supervisor Martin was provided notice of this hearing. The complaint is that Soil Friends, through Supervisor Martin, is in violation of Comstock Charter Township compiled ordinance 27, being its liquor license number 231. Its effective date was October 17, 1983. This ordinance is not enforced by writing a citation, as it has no civil or criminal penalty. Instead, the ordinance specifically requires this hearing that we're doing tonight. Within this ordinance, it provides in section 27.002B8 that no license to sell beer, wine, or spirits shall be issued to any law enforcing public official or any member of the township board, and no such official shall be interested in any way, either directly or indirectly, in the manufacture for sale or distribution of alcoholic liquor. Wine is an alcoholic liquor. Section 3 of the ordinance indicates that following notice of the hearing, the Township Board shall submit to the license holder and the Liquor Control Commission a written statement of its findings and determination. Soil Friends has 2 licenses under review through this hearing, a small winemaker's license and an on-premise tasting room license. The Township, in fact, approved Soil Friends' small winemaker license in October 2017. Additionally, Soil Friends' on-premise tasting room also required approval from the Township Board. This is not a public hearing, but rather a hearing for Soil Friends and Ben Martin to present their case as to why they are not in violation of the referenced ordinance. Ben and Soil Friends may present evidence in this regard. Following the presentation of any evidence by Supervisor Martin and Soil Friends, any questions that the board may have of them, the board will then make a written statement of its findings and determination. Any determination will only be a recommendation to the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. With that said, we move on to the public hearing portion of the meeting.
Okay. The motion, yes. I entertain a motion to open the hearing regarding violation of compiled ordinance number 27 against Soil Friends LLC and Supervisor Ben Martin. Do I have a second on this motion?
Second.
Thank you. I'd like to make sure that all board members has a copy of the compiled ordinance number 27 that was provided by Attorney Thal this evening. And on that,
We'll have to have a vote to open.
yeah. And with that, I would like to have a vote to open the hearing. A motion?
You made the motion, I second, so we just have to say all in favor. So
Oh,
or
thank you.
actually, this is a roll call.
Yeah.
Roll call.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Roll call.
Trustee Pratt.
Yes.
Trustee Amos.
No.
Trustee Cherry.
Yes.
Clerk Bochamp, yes. Treasurer Bloomfield.
No.
Trustee McIver.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Hearing is open.
Why don't you let the people back here vote?
Yeah.
It's our
Okay,
town.
with that said, and that motion, with support, I open the offer Supervisor Martin or Soil Friends the opportunity to address the board concerning this issue.
Thank you, Township Board. Sarah's pretty busy back there, so I'll just take it from here. Sarah, if you feel any need to come up at any point, you're more than welcome. Okay. I find this evening interesting, considering that back in 2022, the township knew how to contact the Liquor Control Commission regarding Soil Friends. Below is an email that I FOIA'd from the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. The picture below is a screenshot of their Facebook post from yesterday. They have a bar in the barn with live music and events as well. I think this is beyond their tasting license, and I would like someone to check this out, please. I will be in contact with the Kalamazoo County Health Department in reference to the food being served as well. Please update me with anything done or not done if possible. As we receive any further complaints, I would like to know if they are compliant or not. That was in October 2022, followed by a December 2nd, 2022 Comstock public press release on Soil Friends that is still publicly available and full of inaccurate, false information. Tonight, on record, I request that that township board review that information, redact that information, and make a public statement apologizing to Soil Friends for all of the false statement and all the information in that press release. There are multiple things that is wrong. I also want to let it be known that in 2017, I had an attorney, a very fine attorney, Chris Tracy, come to this township. We did a text amendment to put wineries in ag residential zoning. At the time, the zoning administrator told me that agriculture does not allow for wineries. I thought, well, where do grapes grow? So it would be a good idea that we added a text amendment. We did that. And through that text amendment, it was amended, and that was there's likely a terminology, permitted use, because a text amendment was inside of the zoning for ag residential. And then years later, after operating, we were shut down, and in that public press release, it said that Soil Friends did not seek local township approval. Well, that's because without administrative due process, Comstock Township changed our zoning to special exemption without notifying us. That was wrong, terribly wrong. So tonight, here we are. You know that there are different means to contact the Liquor Control Commission, such as the email that you sent last time. But tonight, we're here and a different reason for a public hearing. Thank you. I want to address the board and I want to address the residents of this township. Ordinance 231 was adopted in 1983 to establish procedures for liquor control licenses that come through this board for approval. The ordinance title says it plainly: an ordinance to establish procedures and standards for review of applications, renewals, and revocations of licenses to sell beer, wine, or spirits. Section 27.002 is titled Applications for New License, and the restrictions in Section B apply to that application process. Soil Friends Winemaker Manufacturing License was issued by the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. It is a state-issued manufactured tiered license. Under Michigan Liquor Control Code's own rules, local legislative approval is not required for manufacturing licenses. Although that there can be a recommendation from a local body, it is also not required. Perhaps in the instance that when Sarah and I would like to brew a little beer, you may think that you would have to approve us to do so, but it would just be a recommendation. The state controls manufacturing. The license never came through this board for that matter, only for a recommendation. It was never subject to the application process, Section 27.002. The restrictions in Section B, including B8, are restrictions on who this board will approve when the license requires local approval. Ours did not. This provision is the basis of the complaint and the justification of the public hearing. The township attorney has acknowledged that he hasn't researched the liquor laws that were on the books when this ordinance was adopted in 1983. He stated that changes in state law may affect how the ordinance can be applied. Nobody involved in this process has done the basic legal homework to determine whether or not this 43-year-old ordinance is even consistent with current state licensing law, and yet here we are holding a public hearing under it. Last year, a federal judge in the Wineries of Old Mission Peninsula versus Peninsula Township case awarded nearly $50 million in damages to Michigan wineries because the township tried to use local ordinances to prohibit what the Michigan Liquor Control Commission permits. The court held that the local ordinances cannot contain an absolute prohibition on activities the state has licensed. That is exactly what is being attempted tonight. I've consulted with Miller Canfield, one of the oldest and largest law firms in Michigan, and that same law firm represented the wineries in that $50 million case against Peninsula Township. Their assessment of tonight's hearing was that this was kangaroo court and that they would not be attending. It would not be worth Sarah and I's money to pay an attorney to attend this meeting. I requested that that attorney write this township board a letter to let you guys know what territory you're heading into. He told me it would not be worth the value of the paper that it's written on because he knows that you would not listen. He understands where tonight is already heading. And I mean that with all due respect. It's just the truth. They advised me that this ordinance does not apply to my state-issued manufacturing license, and that this board lacks jurisdiction over a license it never approved in the first place. And that is the professional opinion of a law firm that just won the case in Michigan. Local units of government cannot have their own liquor license ordinances, as the licensing of businesses and persons to manufacture and sell alcohol is solely for the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. Similarly, determination of who is qualified to sell alcohol is exclusively the role of the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, which has criteria that also needs to be met. And for the record, the Michigan Liquor Control Commission renewed Soil Friends license last week. The state and the actual standing of the license is in good standing. I believe that this ordinance is outdated, it needs amended, and it is unenforceable. The complaint was filed, and it was not processed through the normal ordinance enforcement. However, this ordinance writes that this may hold a public hearing. Perhaps the ordinance officer reviewed it and took a look to take no action because of the hearing, and it is escalated to the hearing. I want to address something that every taxpayer in this room should understand. The township attorney is paid by the residents of this township. He represents the entire township, not just the board majority. That includes me. As I am the elected supervisor, I am also his client. I am here at the podium as a business owner, but if I weren't the supervisor, we wouldn't be talking about this ordinance. Yet tonight, the board majority is using the township attorney, the attorney that all of us pay for, to present and validate the case against me. If I want legal representation in this hearing, I have to hire my own attorney out of my family's pocket. Think about what that means. 4 board members are using your tax dollars to fund their side of this fight, and I'm expected to pay for my own defense against my own attorney. The township cannot simultaneously represent the township and prosecute the township's own supervisor in an adversarial hearing. That is a conflict of interest, and under Michigan Rules of Professional Conduct, Rule 1.7, which prohibits a lawyer from representing a client when that representation is directly adverse to another client. I am the client. The proceeding is adverse to me, and it cannot be done on both sides. The previous township attorney, Catherine Kaufman, faced a similar situation when a trustee pressured her to take sides. She told the entire board, in writing, she represented the whole township, not just a majority and not just hired individuals, and that she would not be weaponized against elected officials. She felt so strongly about it that she declared her own emails non-privileged and public record. Now the current township attorney is being asked to do exactly what Kaufman refused to do. If this board wants to enforce the complaint, it should hire separate outside counsel at taxpayer expense so the residents can see exactly how their money is being spent on this. But using the attorney we all pay for to build a case against an elected official who has to fund his own defense is not due process. It's the majority of the board using public resources to wage a personal fight. I ran for supervisor because I care about this township. I want to focus on things that matter to the residents sitting in this room, like infrastructure, public safety, responsible development, protecting our water and our property values. I want to bring this community together, not divide it further. Every hour we spend on proceedings like this is an hour we're not spending on actual township business. Every dollar in legal fees for hearings like this is a dollar that could go towards services for residents. I didn't come into this office to fight with my colleagues. I came to serve the community. If this board wants to have an honest conversation about Ordinance 231, whether it needs to be updated, amended, repealed to reflect current state law, I'm happy to have that conversation through proper legislative process. But that's not what tonight is. Tonight is an attempt to use a misapplied ordinance to override the will of the voters who elected me and to interfere with a state-issued business that has operated in this community for years. I would ask the members of this board to vote against sending any recommendation to the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. Focus on the work the residents elected us to do, and let's move forward. So, on to one ordinance that I would like to say that came before this ordinance number 27, number 231, is in the Muni Code. It's number 71, and you can find it as the Liquor Control Ordinance number 38, and it was adopted January 4th, 1960. This ordinance shall be known and cited as the Comstock Liquor Control Ordinance. Inside of that ordinance, it references that all sole power and duty is given to the Michigan Liquor Control Code Commission already. And then, if you go through the law, which could be a misinterpretation that some are looking at, is MCL 436.15 523. Restrictions for certain people having law enforcement power and ability, like a police officer, law enforcement official, to enforce penal laws, and that is the law. And so on the application process for the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, they would want to make sure that I am not a police officer in the same jurisdiction that I would have a license. I have no enforcement ability on any police power things or enforcing penal laws. So that is the Michigan compiled law. So that was what the liquor control would look at. Ordinance number 27, or 27, liquor ordinance number 231. If you look at section 27.002, it's an application for a license to sell beer, wine, or spirits, and it should be made to the Township Board in writing. We did not do this. If you move along to, you may have different pages of a printout than I have, but if you move along past section B, and then you go into item number 8, it says any law enforcing public official or any member of the Township Board, and no such official shall be interested in any way, either directly or indirectly, in the manufacture or sale or distribution of alcoholic liquor. That is a provision inside of an ordinance, and that ordinance does not apply to Soil Friends. So I believe the question at hand is we are taking an ordinance that doesn't apply and using provisions inside of said ordinance to apply. Term of license. Approval of a license shall be for a period of 1 year, and that word shall. That should be very important for this Township Board to see. Shall be for a period of 1 year, subject to annual renewal by the Township Board. Our license was just applied last week, and we did not ask for your permission. That does not apply to us. Licensing hearing. The Township Board shall grant a public hearing upon the license application when, its discretion, the Board determines that the issuance of an additional liquor license is in the best interest of the Township at large and for the needs and convenience of its citizens. Following such a hearing, the Board shall submit to the applicant a written statement of its findings and determination. The Board's determination should be based upon satisfactory compliance with the restrictions set forth in paragraph B1 through 12 above. That did not happen to Soil Friends. We did not have a public hearing for the issuance of our license. And so with those things being said, looking through this ordinance is for such a thing as a retail liquor establishment, a gas station that would sell, a convenience store, a liquor store, a grocery store, a bar, or a restaurant. And I believe that the question at hand is that we are looking at a retail liquor license and trying to use provisions for a winemaker. I open it up to any board member questions. And Sarah, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Okay, with that being said, are there board members that have questions for none? Trustee Amos? Clerk Bouchamp?
Yes, I would. Okay, so my understanding is we're looking at ordinance 27. And the question is number 8, which is any law enforcing public official or any member of the Township Board, and no such official shall be interested in any way, either directly or indirectly, in the manufacture for sale or distribution of alcoholic liquor? I believe that's the question in front of us today. Is this correct? Is this everyone's understanding?
No.
So my question is that a violation? Are we in violation of that question?
I don't, in my opinion, this ordinance in general does not apply to a small winemaker. And that is a provision inside of an that the ordinance is not applicable to Soil Friends operation. Therefore, the provisions inside of said ordinance are not either.
So you don't have a liquor license that the Township Board approved in 2017?
No.
I have minutes that say otherwise.
There's a recommendation that you voted
Correct.
7-0.
The Township Board does not issue liquor licenses. We understand that. The state of Michigan does. We're looking at our local ordinance. So we're seeing if our local ordinance, if we're in violation of that. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm not saying we're issuing any licenses. You did go before the Township Board 2017, they recommended approval. So I think the question before us tonight is, does a Township Board member have an interest, directly or indirectly, in the manufacture for sale or distribution of the alcoholic liquor? That's the question we have to answer.
We do not have a liquor license.
You do not have a liquor license?
No.
Okay, that's my question.
Yeah, thank you. We're still in session here. Please keep comments very low, if at all, please. Madam Treasurer, do you have any comments you'd like to, or questions you'd like to ask?
Attorney Falls asked for the speaker. Yeah, can I please have that? While you're standing up there talking, Supervisor Martin, you brought something to the forefront for me, being the liaison between the Planning Commission and the Township Board for the change of zoning. And since I've been on the Planning Commission, I'm not sure where this came to be that we have had people who have had their zoning changed without notification from the Township Board. And the longer I'm on the Planning Commission, the more people are stepping forward. As a matter of fact, we have one on Thursday night's meeting. So that concerns me from you way back then. The other thing that I know we're discussing your liquor license, which we do not have. You have a winemaking license, which, in my opinion, with the businesses my husband and I have owned, they are two different things. A winemaking license is not the same as a liquor license. But one thing that I have wanted to address for a long time, and right now I think I have an opportunity, so I want to thank all of you for coming because I want to clear the air on some things. And I'm going to take us back to September 11th of 2025. I was newly put on the Planning Commission, and I received an email from Sarah Martin from Soil Friends, and she had asked me in the email to put Soil Friends on the agenda to discuss their special use permits and what the township was viewing as violations for Soil Friends. And when Mr. Martin tonight talked about the Mission Peninsula Winery, where they won $50 million, their concern for Sarah was that the township had put stipulations on their special use permit that were also some of the same violations that won that $50 million in northern Michigan. And what happened was I was put under a microscope for saying I overstepped my bounds to try and help Soil Friends and actually try and stop a lawsuit that this municipality might have lost. So what happened was I took it to the Planning Commission, and at that time we had Catherine Kaufman as our attorney, and the Planning Commission overwhelmingly approved giving Soil Friends 120 days to get them through their busy season and then come back to the Planning Commission to address the stipulations that were put on their property, on their business. One of them was music. They could not play music. Now, this is a place that sells Christmas trees, wreaths. They couldn't even play Christmas music for 3 years. Okay? So what happened is the next township board meeting, as the liaison, I took it to the township board and I made a motion to put Soil Friends on the agenda so we could finish the process that the Planning Commission started. And I could not believe that 4 members of this township board voted not to put that on the agenda. At the end of the meeting, I asked Attorney Kaufman if she would please speak to what the Planning Commission was trying to accomplish, and she did. So I was very concerned as Supervisor Martin just stood up there and said, these lawsuits cost us a lot of money. I would hate to see, well, I can see our insurance premiums and how expensive they're getting based on the lawsuits we have, the accidents that have happened, unfortunately, with our fire department out on the highway. This is all part of running the township that's costing the taxpayers money. So since the township board did not want to listen to what the Planning Commission was trying to resolve with Soil Friends, knowing that $50 million had been won and was ready to bankrupt that municipality up north, I went to the next Planning Commission, and lo and behold, sitting next to me was our new attorney. So I will give Attorney Fall kudos for taking the bull by the horns and removing those 4 stipulations that could have cost this township a lot of money. But it was not the township board that was willing to work with this business. It was the Planning Commission. And I have heard and I have seen and I know of a lot of businesses who will not come to this township, who are in this township, who can't do business because they are constantly being targeted. That is not welcoming to anybody. We need to do better. And we are not doing better by sitting up here running this business through something that can be solved. Thank you.
Trustee McGyver, do you have any questions for Soil Friends? Okay.
I would just add that that's another preemption by state law. A municipality may be able to ban Sarah and I from playing Christmas music or having music at the farm, but state law would allow us, and so it would be preempted by state law. And so in this instance tonight, I think we're nearly at the same thing, is that we have an ordinance that is likely already preempted by state law that may not be enforceable. In considering, I mean, yesterday was Oberon Day. We have one of the nation's largest breweries in this municipality. As a local business and a resident, we should be up to snuff on liquor control code, and we should be wondering how do we attract more business.
I have a couple of questions here, and then I will go back to you, yes. Supervisor Martin, just a couple of things here.
If you could address me as Mr. Martin, because we're kind of the supervisor over here, but business owner, and so we'll do that.
How about Mr. Martin?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, just a couple of clarifications concerning your opinion, or Soil Friends' opinion on why, if you could just elaborate a little bit on why you don't think this ordinance that we have, old as it is, why it does not apply to you and Soil Friends. This is a question for the supervisor. And I'd like, if you could, a little clarification.
Okay, so MCL 436.1523, that's going to be the law that the Liquor Control Commission looks at to ensure that I am not a police officer, law enforcement officer, or a person that enforces penal laws in the same jurisdiction that I hold a license. So the Liquor Control would look at the state law. The Liquor Control would look likely at this ordinance and this language inside of this ordinance, and it would show that it's an application for a license to sell beer, wine, or spirits. It does not indicate a application for manufacturer. It's to sell. And so we are a manufacturer, and we are afforded tasting privileges that come with that manufacturing license. And we do not have a retail liquor license, so that's where I stand.
Okay. And you're probably aware that the definition, or some of the definitions that you use there, other people have a different idea of that, like the penal issue, and that as electors, each of us has some duties as far as enforcing the codes of the multiple ordinances that we have within the township.
Yeah, and so as the, it's an interesting scenario because I've really tried to do my best to wear separate hats. I'm the supervisor when I'm the supervisor, I'm a soil friend when I'm a soil friend, but tonight I kind of have both because this ordinance is, basically Soil Friends is not in violation of this ordinance because Soil Friends isn't the supervisor. But I am part of Soil Friends and I am the supervisor. And so, I'm sorry, your question again?
Yeah, and just...
Oh, there we go, I remember, sorry. As the supervisor in Comstock Township, we have an ordinance on who can enforce ordinances, and the supervisor position is not even listed inside of being able to enforce ordinances, and then as well as all the statutory duties of the Comstock Township supervisor, A through O. And when I ran for office, I may have been naive enough to think we could get to Z, but A through O is all that the statute is. So those duties have been delegated elsewhere. I also don't enforce ordinances, and I certainly can't enforce penal laws. And so I seen the Facebook chatter amongst the residents, and I would like to live a good quality life, serve my community, operate my business, help my kids do the things that they would aspire to do. I have no interest in looking over my shoulder. I enjoy what I do. I would love to continue to be able to do it. So I took it amongst myself to call Liquor Control. The individual said, "Do you have a badge?" And I said, "No." He said, "Are you a police officer?" I said, "No." He said, "Are you an FBI detective?" I said, "No." And it wasn't a concern because the law is for the penal code and the enforcement. Essentially, if you were a police officer in a jurisdiction where you had a license and then you had a competitor that had a license, you could possibly ticket that individual. And that's where the conflict of interest would be. Then as far as the supervisor position goes, if there was any appearance of impropriety in any liquor ordinance, winemaker, winery, if the board so chose to have me abstain from voting on that matter, I would be glad to do that. So I believe in such a provision in this ordinance. I believe Section 8 also has a conflict of interest parameter because, you can't run for office and then just start horseshoeing your own liquor licenses through and things like that. So I think that that is part of this ordinance. I did kind of try to scratch around to see who was around at that time when this ordinance was made, and I was not able to really locate anybody to talk to. So I don't know why they put that in there.
Okay, couple further questions. When you applied recently for this renewal, did you mention that you were a board member at that time, whether it be supervisor or whatnot?
Yeah, considering that prior to even putting my hat in the ring to run for supervisor, I had a federal lawsuit, and part of the federal lawsuit had state law claims. One of the state law claims that was in there was basically violation of the Michigan Liquor Control Code. So the Liquor Control had extensive dealings with what we were doing, and they're completely aware that I'm the township supervisor.
In the past, have you been in any violations of the state law under liquor control?
Yeah, so when that complaint came in, the Liquor Control Code came. They had black cars, black tinted windows, and the DEA looking zip-up coats that said Liquor Control Investigator. And they said, boy, who did you piss off? And they came, and they walked through my buildings, and they looked at everything. And what we found was that this is a part that's not understood, is that I have a tasting license. I had a tasting license before I had a barn. And you cannot be afforded the ability to drink outside inside of an outdoor tasting service area without a tasting license. So in order to drink outside, you still have to have a tasting license, and they don't care where your bar or your barn is, whether it's a wine barrel or not, you have to have one before the other. So I had a tasting license, and we have a real unique outdoor service area, and our outdoor service area is large. And when I built a brand new barn, I built my barn inside of my tasting license area, and I did not submit, because I just did not know, that I was supposed to submit a diagram called an add space. If I added a walk-in cooler, if I deleted a walk-in cooler, if I add space or delete space, which is common for restaurants to run into this. You don't know what you don't know until you find out. I did not draw that diagram of my new barn. And so I got a citation, I believe it was $200, for a failure to add space. On that day that I was notified, I literally took a blank piece of paper upside down, drew a box, put it in, turned it in, and rectified that situation. And that was a situation pertaining to Soil Friends and the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. And as soon as I found out that I did something wrong, I corrected it immediately.
Okay. How many total violations have you had?
I believe that would, well, considering that I got a citation from the township that said not licensed to sell alcohol, not licensed to sell food, and not licensed to play music, I'd have to look back, but the interesting part is that a winemaker is actually afforded the ability to play music, and a winemaker's actually afforded the ability to sell food, and a winemaker would be licensed to sell alcohol. So it was a strange. So a winemaker would be, I am licensed to sell alcohol, music, have music, and sell food, but my citation was such, and you have to follow local ordinances, and so if I was cited for that, I would have been cited from liquor control for not following local ordinances. But I was told that I wasn't in compliance with the local ordinance because I didn't have special exemption approval, but I was already approved prior to needing special exemption approval, so it's quite a convoluted mess.
Okay.
But the main discrepancy and the main thing that was an issue was a drawing to add the barn, but I already held the tasting license. I just didn't have the barn.
Okay. Outside the local issues with anything, on the part of the state, how many times have you been cited for violation of state procedures?
We only had the one issue. This whole thing, people say it's multiple things, but as a business owner, it is up to me for failure of all administrative remedies, and I also am always responsible to mitigate my damages. So if I am not able to mitigate my damages, I have to have a failure of all administrative remedies to move forward. And so what I did during that time, although I didn't agree with my attorney, I chose to listen to him. At $450 an hour, it was quite expensive. We had this happen, and we filed a motion for reconsideration, and the judge told us that they wouldn't hear it. So we filed a writ for superintending control, which takes it from one court lower to one court higher. At that time, I called the township's attention. We decided that we would agree to disagree. And although I had a license already, I agreed, despite not wanting to, that I would go into a stipulated court order and I would apply for special exemption approval for a license that I already had to administratively try to work through the township. That was court ordered to be processed in good faith and a timely manner without undue delay. It nearly took 2 years. Don't think there was good faith efforts during that. And I did a motion for show cause. I went to the Kalamazoo County Court. The judge told us to say hello to Judge Maloney. That was my cue that we needed to graduate to another level of court. He also told me that it is not in his jurisdiction. He did not have any information on the liquor control code, did not have any experience on the building code, and did not have any experience on the wine law. And so hence, once we had to move on to federal court. Okay. And so any issues that I've ever had with liquor control were pertaining to the ad space and the discrepancy amongst confusion with the township on when they approved my license, the things that they approved me for. In that public press release, there's mention of the Right to Farm Act and such, where you have to have 50% of your ingredients. But when you're a winemaker and you're a licensed winemaker, you're not a farmer. If you happen to be both, it's an interesting scenario. But the state just wants their tax money. They don't care where your ingredients come from. You could get them from anywhere. So there was lots of confusion, and at some point, liquor control does not want to be in the middle of a fiasco. As this was progressing, our state representative, I reached out to them. Their attorneys went to the Attorney General's office, and I got a phone call on a Friday that said, "Get back in the barn, you're good to go. Get back making cycle." That was my one good glimpse of government actually helping people, and I seen it, and so I know it can be done.
Okay. And did the state follow up with a letter confirming that for you and your...
Yes.
Okay.
And then just to clear the air, and I have all the documents and emails to prove it, which is, I find it kind of ironic. In my first complaint to liquor control, they acknowledged my tasting license, so it was like putting a complaint on me and acknowledging the license that I had, but then later pivoting to say that I didn't have the license, was that I was told that if I wanted to have weddings and private events in my barn, that I would need to be considered a commercial operation. That commercial operation would require handicap parking, would require a commercial driveway entrance, would require ADA accessible bathrooms. I acknowledged in that email, I have the records, and I said, I look forward to working with you. I immediately hired an architect. We started doing drawings, and in the midst of, we're a small family business, and when you want to spend a couple $100,000, you got to chip away at the bit to get something done. But I needed to know where I was going. So if I was going to build a 16-foot wall once, I needed to know if it needed to be fire rated or not. And so as my architect was building our design for our barn, this is where we are and this is where we're trying to go, I was shut down and accused of having a wedding without having a wedding, and I was told that a public gathering is an assembly is a wedding. Although I didn't have a wedding, it was still considered the same. The interesting thing was that I had a tasting license, and that tasting license wasn't for Sarah and I to drink cider in the pumpkin patch. It was for the public to come. So I was also cited for an unlawful assembly. So that is where the discrepancy in the commercial building code came in, because we were told if it was non-agricultural money, that venue would need to be to the commercial compliance. And so we worked through it, and now we have everything that we need.
Okay. Just an aside here, just from some of the comments that have been offered, and I've been to your facility many years ago, taking the grandkids there, and we enjoyed it thoroughly. And I've done business with you before you became a supervisor, so I know what an asset that you have there. And I'm fearful that some people don't understand what we as board members have to do in looking at everything critically, and by law. And so my one last question for you, in your conversations with the state of Michigan Liquor Control, did they mention that the fact that's within our ordinance that you as an applicant and every other applicant, that you are charged with obeying all laws, state as well as local ordinances? Did they go over that with you?
That is on the bottom of the application form.
Yes. So you were aware of that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. But if this matter is sent to the Michigan Liquor Control Commission for a revocation of my license, the license has been, it would not be for a non-renewal. This township board would actually be asking the state of Michigan to take my license. And then also, what this board is indicating, and some things that I've seen in the marketplace, is that it's up to the board to do the due diligence to pass the things along to the state, but the state's already in control. And so, essentially, we would be sending our ordinance to Liquor Control Commission to ask them and their set of team of attorneys to interpret our own ordinances. And I think it would be really beneficial for us to understand, that is the major question tonight. It is how does one interpret this ordinance? And you may even have legal representation that may have a different interpretation of an ordinance. But really comes down to a question of interpretation and preemption of state law. And so there's a chance that liquor control would do nothing. Thank you.
My question is, so you make hard cider and you stock stores and sell it in stores?
Correct. Although that during this discrepancy, I did put the squeezing on that pretty good. So, kind of.
Correct. I understand that as a business owner. The other thing that I did not get a chance to finish up and talk about was I would like for you to tell the audience and the people who are going to watch this video what happened in your court case and why they think that you lost that court case, when in actuality I would like for you to explain what happened so the air is cleared there as well.
Yeah, I think it would be extremely helpful. If I was afforded as a small farmer to roll around and drive the tractor in circles out back and have fun on the tractor planting plants and doing that, I would. But nowadays people want to come to an agritourism place. They want to have memories and have fun. Hence the reason that we make the hard cider. When you have food and music and cider and crops and a farm market, it's a few things going on, but at the end of the day, it's all for the common good of having people have a good experience at your location. It was up to me and my wife to mitigate all of our damages, and mitigating our damages meant moving our business forward to getting it to a point where it can be open And through that process, unfortunately, the route that we had to take was through federal court. The first round was basically dismissed on governmental immunity. We appealed it. We were able to go through a mediation process. Luckily, somehow residents found the mediation recording on YouTube, which was kind of interesting because I wasn't there, and so I got to listen to it. And basically, the mediator did not really, it appeared that they did not talk with the judges prior. And so what happened was, during mediation and through working with the Township Planning Commission, all was settled except monetary damages. And during that time, we were able to get the barn open, we were able to play music, we were able to do everything. And the judges just decided to affirm the previous court's decision and not grant the appeal. In that, since the business was open in their eyes, it was moot. And monetary damages are hard in court to get. So, and previously, I was in Richland Township. I was a college student. I went to school for food and consumer packaging. I really liked the grocery store in the way that there's a lot of science between, there's Tracker chips in your grocery cart. There's the reason why the Oreos are on the left and something's over here. And Jack's Pizza doesn't always stay, like it's got scanner data. And so I studied the grocery store, and what I found intriguing was value-added agriculture. How can you be a small farm, turn something into a product rather than a commodity? Because I've also sold commodities, and the grocery store wants to pay 25% less every year, and if you do that 4 years in a row, that's zero. So that's been the interesting part.
I guess the point I was trying to get across to the audience was, because the Planning Commission came forward and worked with this business, the court viewed that as the dispute was settled. And I hope you all understand that. It was not a win for the township, nor was it a win for Soil Friends. And so here we sit again with something so close to the same thing that should be worked out instead of moving forward.
And back to my long-winded part about going to school and being a college student, is that I was a farmer in Richland, and I got a grocery store order for tomatoes. I wanted to build a hoop house. The township told me that the parcel of land that I was on had too many accessory buildings for a parcel that square footage, and that a parcel under 5 acres would not be able to have livestock, and we would not be able to have hoop houses. I found a guy online called Shady Grove Farms, Northern UP. He used the Michigan Right to Farm Act, and he was able to prevail. So I built 2 hoop houses, knowing all well that Richland Township told me no. I built them anyways because I knew about the Right to Farm Act. The inspector came to the farm, and I was cited. We went to court. I didn't have certain paperwork that I wasn't aware of. The court sided with the township, and then we appealed it, and then miraculously we were able to keep all the animals, and we were able to keep the greenhouses. But we did what they call a win-win. You bear your cost, you bear your cost, you got what you want, you didn't pay anything, and you got what you want, you got to keep your greenhouses. So, being that, I was a young college student with children, and I thought it would be appropriate to buy a bigger farm on the same road, so that's why I moved to Comstock Township. So, and then there would be another thing that this ordinance, and I didn't even touch on it because you're kind of going off into the weeds a little bit, but it's true. The Right to Farm Act protects namesake ingredients, and so this ordinance to say that an elected official can't manufacture their product, I think you're venturing in right to farm territory as well. Because wineries are protected by the right to farm for the sale of alcohol.
Okay, board members, are there any further questions for Mr. Martin? Attorney Thal, at this point, if there's no further questions, is this the point I close the open session and go back? Okay. With no further questions on the part of board members, the open session is closed. Thank you. And we'll do
I move that we close the hearing.
Support.
And let's do a roll call vote for that.
Thank you. Trustee Pratt?
Yes.
Trustee Amos?
Yes.
Treasurer Bloomfield?
Yes.
Clerk Bochamp, yes. Trustee Cherry?
Yes.
Trustee McIver? Okay, the hearing is closed.
Okay, moving along to findings and action. Anyone want this microphone?
All right, so the the hearing has been closed, and now it's before you. You're required to make findings of fact and determinations regarding the matter. You have different options in front of you. You could find no violation if you chose to. You could determine that the ordinance was not intended to cover small winemakers in on-premise tasting rooms. You could also find that there is a violation. And on that basis, finding that that Supervisor Martin is directly interested as a member of Soil Friends in the manufacture, sale, and distribution of alcoholic liquor, and and make a recommendation to the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, if you chose to not renew Soil Friends licenses for small winemaker and on-premise tasting rooms. The township did, in 2017, recommend approval of the small winemaker's license, and also on-premise tasting rooms require approval of the township. So both of those items do go through the township. One is a recommendation, one is approval. So at this point, it's up to you what kind of decision you want to make.
After hearing the input from Soil Friends and reviewing the ordinance that we have at hand and have had on our books for some time, I make the motion that the findings of fact and determination for a violation. Do I?
Support. The accused wasn't even here to say it itself, so why are you doing this? He should have been.
And I will read the entirety of this for the request from Attorney Fall. Comstock Charter Township findings of fact and determination for violation. I move that the Charter Township of Comstock Township Board finds that, number one, Soil Friends LLC's member is Township Supervisor Ben Martin. Two, Ben Martin has been supervisor since November 2024. Three, pursuant to Township compiled Ordinance 27-002B-8, strike that point 8, that a liquor license shall not be issued to any law enforcement, public official, or any member of the Township Board, and no such official shall be interested in any way, either directly or indirectly, in the manufacture, for sale, or distribution of alcoholic liquor. Number four, Soil Friends has, through the Liquor License Commission, a small winemaker license and an open, and premises tasting room permit, both of which involve the manufacture for sale or distribution of alcoholic liquor. Number five, the township approved Soil Friends' small winemaker license in October 2017. Number six, the Soil Friends on-premises tasting room permit required approval from the Charter Township of Comstock Board. And that based upon these facts, the Charter Township of Comstock Township Board determines that, number one, Soil Friends is in violation of compiled Ordinance 27-002B.8, as Supervisor Ben Martin is directly interested as a member of Soil Friends LLC in the manufacture, sale, and distribution of alcoholic liquor. And two, recommendation be made to the Michigan Liquor Control Commission to not renew Soil Friends license for small winemaker and on-premises tasting room.
Nobody's gonna wanna do business in this
We'll have
town.
a apartment in the garage.
You're driving out small business.
The board has the room right now, so we're doing our business. There is a motion on the floor by trustee Pratt, second by clerk Bochamp. I'm going to do a roll call vote until the room's quiet.
Mr. Sherry Holmes.
Recall her.
You're on the board. She's going just like this.
She doesn't want any of your business.
You got no backbone. Try to run the show.
Way to drive out business in your
Don't like it?
community. You're a laughing stock.
All right, Treasurer,
Wouldn't be here for one for him.
the chair right now is trustee Pratt. But I've been asked to explain by Treasurer Bloomfield the motion on the table, and that motion is a recommendation to be made to the Michigan Liquor Control Commission to not renew Soil Friends licenses for small winemaker and on-premise tasting room. So that is the motion.
You don't have police power.
So that's the motion that's up for a vote.
Who gave you police power?
Thank you. The motion was made and the second, and we have a voice. We don't have a voice count as yet, and I think we should in this instance. Okay, Mr. Martin makes a good point concerning discussion. And though we've had plenty, we can have, you want discussion on this before? Okay. Is there any further discussion?
This is my discussion. The township board is overstepping its bounds again here. So, I'm looking to see what time it is. It is 10 to 9, and we have sat here for 3 hours and listened to, I have listened, I will speak for myself, I have listened to you, the residents, and that is not what the residents wished for this motion to be. So, I will be voting no. Thank you.
Listen to your residents.
I'm sorry.
Have
Roll call vote.
Sharon can't vote.
Did you?
I can give it to
I have not done it before, so where are we at?
Another check, for another check.
Okay.
Step down.
Trustee Amos.
No.
Trustee Pratt, yes. Trustee McIver. Supervisor, Mr. Martin.
You cannot vote on this.
That's Clerk Bochamp.
Yes.
Trustee Sherry.
Trustee Sherry should not vote.
Order, please. Order, please.
Conflict of
Bring it on, bring it on.
We will finish this. Trustee Sherman.
Nobody will be business here. We just couldn't hear.
Be here, you're such a man.
Treasurer, can you move on?
Let that kid.
One of these motorcycles.
She knows it.
We have a vote.
Maybe she ought to take up the pump in the
Treasurer,
Bible.
That can't vote, she should vote. And the accusers should be here. What's better, two chickens step foot in here?
You got that right.
Well, notice she can't vote.
Sitting in flunkies in 5
Okay,
o'clock.
the vote passes. The vote passes 4, 1 abstentions, 2 noes. And that concludes business. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.